you, colleagues. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Newton City Council. We are being both audio taped and videotaped. I have Councilors Kelly and Downs participating remotely. I have two absences as of now. Councilors Baker and Wright, and everyone else is in attendance here in person. We are going to go through our regular agenda this evening. First call, we have one item on second call that I anticipate will be very short, and then I'm going to accept a motion to recess and move to a committee of the whole with finance presiding. It is my hope, but obviously we'll see how the evening goes, that we actually get through the budget this evening. If we do, then we will reconvene in the full city council, and if it goes as expected, we'll take votes to appropriate various funding for fiscal year 2026 in the full council, at which point we'll invite the mayor in to join us. And then we will adjourn, and if that's the case, we will not need to meet Wednesday or Thursday nights, which I'm sure is going to be of benefit to folks. But of course, no rush. We'll see how things go this evening. So with that, we're going to start off with the Land Use Committee. Councilor Kelly, do you want to take it up?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. President. Can you hear me, everyone?
We can.
Great. The report starts on page 107. The Land Use Committee met on May 6th. At that meeting, we took up and voted on item number 124-25, which was a request to allow parking in the front setback at 22 Owatonna Street, and that was approved 8-0. Number 125-25 was held. Number 126-25, which was a request to further increase non-conforming FAR and lot coverage at 100 Bellevue Street, was approved 8-0. Number 127-25 was a request to further increase non-conforming FAR and to further decrease non-conforming open space at 33 Mountain Street. That was approved 8-0. Continuing on page 108, number 128-25 was a request for a waiver from certain dimensional requirements for parking and signage at 131 Rumford Ave for the Newton Food Pantry. That was approved 8-0. We then approved two withdrawals without prejudice. The first was for number 273-24, which was a request to rezone two parcels to multi-residence 1 at 329 through 335 River Street. Approved without prejudice 8-0, and the related item was 274-24, which was the request to allow 6 attached single-family dwellings and 3 buildings and associate parking waivers at the same address at 329-335 River Street. That too was approved without prejudice. And finally, we took up item number 111-25, which was a request to change an existing non-conforming residential use to allow 3 separate single-family dwellings on one lot with City Council determining appropriate density and dimensions. That was approved 7-0 with 1 abstention. And Mr. President, if you're ready, I would like to request some public hearings.
Please go ahead and notice the public hearings.
Thank you. On page 120, we'd like to request 3 hearings for June 3rd. The first is number 156-25 for 1062 Beacon Street. Number 155-25 for 3 Newland Street. And number 154-25 for 30 Glendale Drive. And with that, I conclude my report.
Thank you, Chair Kelly. Next, Vice Chair Oliver for Zoning and Planning Committee.
Great, thank you, Mr. President. The report begins on page 109. The Zoning and Planning Committee met on the 12th of May. All items were held. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Oliver. Next, I have Chair Krentzman for Programs and Services.
Thank you, Mr. President. The report begins on page 110. Programs and Services Committee met on May 7th. Item 101-25. This is the authorization to transfer and expend $76,975 for temporary school nursing staff was approved by a vote of 8-0. The next item was held. Item 135-25. This is the appointment of Gregory Ansaldi as the Chief Information Officer was approved by the committee by a vote of 8-0. Committee also met on May 8th. Item 114-25, the appropriation of $1,170,612 to reduce one-time Newton Public Schools expenditures was approved by the committee by a vote of 8-0. Last item was held. With that, I would move the report.
Thank you, Chair Krentzman. Chair Grossman for Public Safety and Transportation.
Thank you, Mr. President. The report begins on page 111. The committee met on May 7th and all items were held.
Thank you. Next, I have Chair Albright for Public Facilities.
Thank you, Mr. President. The report begins on page 112. The committee met 3 times since our last meeting. On 4/23, we took up 9725 and approved 8-0 the reappointment of David Gillespie to the Design Review Committee. And then we met again on May 7th, and that item was held. And on May 14th, we took up a bunch of free cash items. Most were held, but I'll tell you the ones that were approved. 115-25, the appropriation of $160,000 for a City Hall elevator modernization project was approved. $160,000, if I didn't say that. It was approved 7-0. On page 115, 120-25 was an appropriation of $150,000 for fire stations number 1, 2 for their living quarter improvements, and that was approved 7-0. And 98-25, an authorization of $225,576 for prevailing wage rate adjustment, and this was approved also 7-0, and that concludes the report.
Thank you, Chair Albright. Chair Gentile for Finance, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. The finance report begins on page 116. First item is 100-25. Your Honor, the Mayor requesting authorization to transfer and expend $65,000 to settle a legal settlement workers' compensation claim. It was approved 8-0. For the next item, I would like to request a suspension of the rules in order to poll my committee on this item.
Go ahead, please. Councilor Gentile's asked for suspension of the rules. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Go ahead, please.
So the item is, Your Honor, the Mayor requesting an amendment to Chapter 2 of the Newton Revised Ordinances to create a Department of Sustainability. On Friday, we received some correspondence from the mayor asking that we not move forward with this item and that we NAN the item. It was originally approved in finance by a vote of 2 in favor with 6 abstentions, but at this time, I would like to poll the committee to see if they would be willing to substitute NAN for the approval.
Go ahead and poll your committee, please.
So all those in favor of NAN, please raise your hand so we can get the count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have a full committee, and the vote is 8 in favor with no opposition to NAN the item. Thank you. Moving along, 108-25, Your Honor, the Mayor requesting authorization to increase the FY25 full-time equivalent positions in the Comptroller's office from 6.4 to 7. This was approved 8-0. 109-25 is on second call, I believe. Yes, that's on second call. 113-25. Your Honor, the Mayor requesting authorization to appropriate $40,000 from FY25 budget reserve to purchase equipment for the Emergency Operations Center at the fire headquarters. Approved 8-0. 116-25. Her Honor, the Mayor requesting authorization to appropriate $40,000 to repair the fountain located within the traffic island. The item was held, 7-1. 121-25 was held, 122-25 was held, 136-25, Her Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to expend $2,000 from the Commission on Disability Fines account to celebrate Disability Pride Month. This was approved 8-0. 137-25, Her Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to expend $10,000, again from the Commission on Disabilities Fines account, to purchase 1 shower chair and 2 wheelchairs to be used at the Gath pools, approved 8-0. 138-25, Her Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to accept and expend a grant of $17,314 from the Massachusetts Executive Office of Public Safety and the Massachusetts Department of Fire Safety. This was approved 8-0. 139-25, Her Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to accept and expend a grant of $2,900 from the Massachusetts Department of Fire Services. This was approved 8-0. 86-25, the Community Preservation Committee recommending an appropriation of $75,000 from unrestricted prior year funds for expenses relating to the replacement of the deck at the Newton Community Farm, which was approved 8-0. And the last item was 87-25, Community Preservation Committee recommending $214,300 in Community Preservation Act funding, again from unrestricted prior years funds, for architecture, engineering, and investigative expenses to the War Memorial Stairs. This item was amended first in Public Facilities and then in Finance to $189,300, and it was approved in Finance by a vote of 8-0, and I would move the
Chair
report.
Gentile, Councilor Krinsman advised me that on page 115, you did not report out 114-25 on the bottom of the page.
On page 115,
Yes, Councilor Gentile.
okay. 114, oh, the joint referral, okay, my bad. 114-25, Her Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to appropriate a sum of $1,170,612 from June 30th, 2024 certified free cash to reduce one-time expenditures for the Newton Public Schools. This does not have the vote, but I believe the vote was 8-0 in favor.
It looks like it was 7-0.
Oh, excuse me, 7-0 in favor in Finance. And so with that, I'd move the report.
Thank you, Chair Gentile. Councilor Danberg for real property reuse.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's no report.
Mr. President, I don't think that we reported out the 2 CPC items from Public Facilities. We held them because Finance hadn't met, so should I report them out, or are you okay with it?
So remind me, as Finance has
Just reported them out.
just approved it, and we had approved it,
Yes.
so I think you should report it out so that we can vote on it this evening.
Okay, this happened at the May 5th meeting of Public Facilities, 8725. CPC recommendation to appropriate $189,300 in CPA funding, and that was for, this one is for the community, the City Hall steps, I believe.
That's correct.
And that's, the vote was 7 in favor, none opposed. And here's the other one, 8625. The Community Preservation Committee recommending appropriation of $75,000 for the replacement of the deck at the Newton Community Farm, and that was approved 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you for catching that, Chair Albright. All right, anything else on first call? Seeing none, Madam Acting Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Counselor Albright,
Aye.
Counselor Baker, Counselor Bigsby.
Aye.
Counselor Block.
Aye.
Counselor Danberg.
Aye.
Counselor Downs.
Aye.
Counselor Farrell.
Aye.
Counselor Gentile. Counselor Getz.
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg.
Aye.
Counselor Grossman.
Aye.
Counselor Humphrey.
Aye.
Counselor Kalis.
Aye.
Counselor Kelly.
Aye.
Counselor Krinsman.
Aye.
Counselor Leary.
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff.
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz. Counselor Lucas.
Aye.
Counselor Maliki.
Aye.
Counselor Mickley.
Aye.
Counselor Oliver.
Aye.
Counselor Wright. President Laredo.
Aye.
The motion passes with 21 yeas and 3 absent.
Thank you, Madam Acting Clerk. Chair Gentile, we have one item on second call. It's an item from Finance. If you would read it into the record, and then I'm going to recognize Councilor Grossman, who placed it on second call.
The item on second call is docket item 109-25. Her Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to appropriate $50,000 from FY25 budget reserve for the installation of a heat pump in the Information Technology Department at City Hall. I'll let Councilor Grossman obviously speak for herself, but the vote in Finance was 6 in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 abstaining. Councilor Bixby. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair Gentile. Councilor Grossman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to explain why I voted no in committee, and it was a twofold set of reasoning for me. So this item, Commissioner Morse joined us, and he explained that the administration is looking to repurpose some space in City Hall, I believe, where we've been storing some server equipment. And we don't really need that server equipment anymore because we've been transitioning a lot to the cloud. So the IT department is interested in repurposing some of that space as office space, which I think, among other things, will allow for more in-person time for employees where some of them have been working hybrid from home. And I completely understand that goal. There were 2 things about it that stood out to me. The first one is that the request came from Budget Reserve, which, as many of you probably know, is an account that we set aside money in every year in case any of our budget assumptions essentially are wrong and we have overages in some of our departments. But by this point in the year, since we're just about a month away from the end of the fiscal year, is essentially the same thing as free cash. And as you can see from so much of the rest of our agenda, we held a lot of other free cash items, largely to ensure we were going to be able to reach an agreement on the school budget issues, which it's at least sounding likely to me is going to happen tonight. But it also bothered me for a second reason, and that is that I am on the 5th grade graduation committee at Ward School. My son is graduating this year. And when we sat down with the principal, 3 parents and the principal, the first thing that she asked us to do was to reach out to Temple Emmanuel, which is on Ward Street, around the corner from Ward. Because last year in June at graduation time, there was a heat wave, and the temperatures in the building were above 100 degrees. I actually think she said 110 degrees, but I can't remember that for sure, so I don't want to say something that might not be true. Certainly above 100 degrees. And they were worried that parents and grandparents were going to pass out. So they called up the Temple, and the Temple graciously welcomed them into their air-conditioned space to hold the graduation. And each year, the 5th graders at Ward spend the year raising money so that at the end of the year, they can make a gift to the school. One example in past years was a buddy bench where on the playground. There's now a bench that you can go and sit on if you don't have anybody to play with. And then other kids and teachers know that you're looking for companionship, and I think that's a beautiful thing. Last year, instead, the money was a donation to Temple Emmanuel, who I think did not charge them, but Temple Emmanuel rents their space for a fair amount of money. So with our budget this year for graduation, the first thing I was asked was to reach out and ask what the charge would be to rent their space so that we don't have to scramble on an emergency basis this year to find air conditioning for our community. So while I totally understand, and it's written in the report, that this heat pump is because there's no air conditioning in this space and for the comfort of our employees, it really bothers me that having served on this working group, which was terminated 2 years ago, for the Ward and Underwood schools, which are just two of our schools which are badly in need of upgrades, that we've got kids and teachers and staff in these buildings who are really uncomfortable for a large part of the year without adequate heating and cooling in their buildings, particularly on the heat side in September and June. And even though I understand that this amount of money is not going to move the needle on something like that, being able to vote on these free cash items and relate it, well, this obviously is budget reserve, but you know what I mean, is essentially the only tool we have in the toolbox to express our views on these things. And that's why I voted no and why I'm going to vote no this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Grossman. Anyone else wish to be heard on the item? Councilor Gentile.
First, I want to thank my colleague for Ward 7 for giving a report I probably should have given when I read the item into the agenda, but it's an accurate report. The only point that I would like to add, or at least emphasize a little bit, at least for me, the reason why I supported it, and I supported it now, is the people in this department are working a hybrid schedule. And I just think that more work, better work gets done when people are together at the place of employment, working together. And this would allow for that. And when asked about it, the commissioner said, the sooner I get the money, the sooner this will be converted, and the sooner that we'll have everybody in the office in the same place. So under different circumstances, I think that everybody would have voted for this. I understand Councilor Grossman has been consistent in not approving these free cash items, and we did hold a lot of them. I just think that this one would be moving forward, and I think it's valuable to have all of our employees here at City Hall, so I supported it, and I think others may have for reasons along the same line.
Thank you, Chair Gentile. Councilor Bixby.
Thank you. I'll just speak briefly, but perhaps also while I'm speaking, we'll know a little bit more about what's happening at the school committee. And I abstained the other evening in large part because I share Councilor Grossman's concerns and share them at the time. First of all, I feel like we were overall taking some moments to think about the free cash and the budget reserve items that we were presented with in light of the school department shortfall. And I just wanted to say this evening, I really appreciated that, being able to look at all these free cash items all together and a little bit more of balancing and evaluating them all at the same time. So I think that kind of thing would be very helpful to us going forward, to be able to not just look at these one by one, but look at them in context. And couldn't agree more about the schools that don't have air conditioning. I will vote in favor of this tonight because I'm hopeful that things will be going the way we hope at the school committee, and that we will have some sort of resolution this evening. And I do think that heat pumps and other environmental measures are important, but I hope that we can keep in mind this kind of evaluation of free cash items and in the context of everything else we're trying to do with our city budget. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Bixby. Anyone else wish to be heard? Seeing none, let's call the roll, and this one is on second call. Madam Acting Clerk.
Councilor Albright.
A point of information, Mr. President.
Yes.
Voting yes is approving the Finance Committee's
Yes,
report.
voting yes or
no.
aye is approving the Finance Committee vote, which passed 6-1-1.
Thank you.
Counselor Albright,
Aye.
Counselor Baker, Counselor Bigsby,
Aye.
Counselor Block,
No.
Counselor Danberg,
Aye.
Counselor Downs. Aye. Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Gentile. Counselor Getz,
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg,
Aye.
Counselor Grossman,
No.
Counselor Humphrey,
Aye.
Counselor Kalis,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Grinsman,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz, Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Maliki,
Aye.
Counselor Mickley,
Aye.
Counselor Oliver,
Aye.
Counselor Wright,
Aye.
President Laredo.
Aye.
The motion passes with 20 yeas, 2 absent, and 2 nays.
And we have been joined by Counselor Wright, who's participating remotely. All right, that concludes our business for the moment. Do I have a motion to recess and go into committee of the whole? So moved by Counselor Lucas, seconded by Counselor Leary. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. We're going to turn it over to Counselor Gentile. I'm going to give everyone 30 seconds to.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. We are going to go right back into the list of departments. Our first department to be reviewed this evening is Health and Human Services, and I will recognize Chairman Krinsman.
Thank you. So Programs and Services Committee met on Wednesday, May 7th to discuss the Health and Human Services Department budget. Commissioner Shin-Yi Lau presented the budget to the committee. We talked about school health programs and mental health needs of students being a top priority for the department. Interestingly, she shared that the school health division provides care to more than 11,000 students, and in the 23-24 school year, 304 times they met with students for health visits related to illness and injury, so as well as medication administration. The Public Health Division conducted over 1,000 inspections over the past year and educated retailers on the new nicotine-free generation ordinance, completed case investigations, and contact tracing for 111 cases of communicable diseases. They also implemented the Vaccine for Children program and installed 54 nalox boxes throughout the city. The committee took a straw vote to accept the Health and Human Services Department's proposed budget of $5,645,970, which passed unanimously, a vote of 6-0. That represents a 9.38% increase from FY25.
Okay, are there any questions or comments for the chair? Okay, seeing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Albright,
Aye.
Counselor Baker, Counselor Bigsby,
Aye.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Danberg,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Abstain.
Counselor Gentile,
Aye.
Counselor Getz,
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg,
Aye.
Counselor Grossman,
Aye.
Counselor Humphrey,
Aye.
Counselor Kalis,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Krinsman,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz, Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Maliki,
Aye.
Counselor Mickley,
Aye.
Counselor Oliver,
Aye.
Counselor Wright,
Aye.
President Laredo.
Aye.
The motion passes with 21 yeas, 2 absent, and 1 abstention.
Okay, thank you. Next department, actually all the departments that we have tonight, programs and services, though I would like to just say one thing, older adult services. I don't know who came up with that one, and I'm sure they had their reasons, but as someone who easily fits into this category, senior seems like a little distinguished, a little bit of a class. Older adult services. I get called old all the time. Senior I can get, but anyway. Go ahead, Mr. Chair. We did?
We did approve this as a council. Unfortunately, we did not approve the simple name of Department of Older Affairs or Older Adults, which obviously would have been DOA.
Oh, Jesus.
So fortunately, we went with Department of Older Adult Services.
Okay, thank you.
The Programs and Services Committee met on Wednesday, May 8th to discuss the budget for the renamed Older Adult Services Department. The Director of Senior Services, Mignon Murray, presented to the committee. She shared that they are merely months away from opening the Cooper Center for Active Living, and that has a significant impact on the budget, obviously, as they have to staff up for that. The building, by the way, is 33,000 square feet, has 3 floors, a raised walking track, multiple classrooms, a meeting room, and a multi-purpose room that seats 100 to 150 people. There are 3 new FTEs that have been proposed, which includes a full-time program assistant, a full-time front desk position, and a second full-time case manager. The committee took a straw vote to accept the Older Adult Services Department's budget of $1,335,456, which passed unanimously. That represents, by the way, an increase of 43.67% from last year.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Seeing none, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Albright,
Aye.
Counselor Baker, Counselor Bigsby. Sorry, could you repeat that?
Aye.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Danberg,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Gentile,
Aye.
Counselor Getz,
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg,
Aye.
Counselor Grossman,
Abstain.
Counselor Humphrey,
Aye.
Counselor Kalis,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Krinsman,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz, Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Maliki,
Aye.
Counselor Mickley,
Aye.
Counselor Oliver,
Aye.
Counselor Wright,
Aye.
President Laredo. The motion passes with 21 yeas, 2 absent, and 1 abstention.
Okay, next department is Veteran Services.
The Programs and Services Committee met on Wednesday, May 7th to discuss the budget for the Veteran Services Department. Seth Bai, the Director of Veteran Services, introduced the budget and acknowledged that not a lot changes from year to year. The committee discussed the work of the Veteran Services Department and outreach and assistance that is provided to veterans with attention to ways to help with outreach. So the straw vote in committee was 8-0 to approve the budget of $231,817. This is an increase of 10.01% from the previous year.
Okay, questions or comments? Councilor Farrell.
Sorry. Thank you, Chair. Again, I just want to say it would be terribly difficult for me to ever vote against anything to do with veteran services, and I hope you will join me in voting aye on this issue.
Okay, anyone else? Councilor Leary?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to remind my colleagues that Memorial Day is coming up, and we do have an observance that starts in the park in Nonantum, and I would encourage my colleagues to attend with me. There should be an announcement about that in our Friday packet coming up. And we also walk to the bridges as well, and it's very meaningful. And I would like to see a good show of city councilors there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, can we get a roll call, please?
Counselor Albright,
Aye.
Counselor Baker, Counselor Bigsby,
Aye.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Danberg,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Sorry, aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Gentile,
Aye.
Counselor Getz,
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg,
Aye.
Counselor Grossman,
Aye.
Counselor Humphrey,
Aye.
Counselor Kalis,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Krinsman,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz, Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Maliki,
Aye.
Counselor Mickley,
Aye.
Counselor Oliver,
Aye.
Counselor Wright,
Aye.
President Laredo.
Aye.
The motion passes with 22 yeas and 2 absent.
Thank you. All right, before I ask for a report on the library, when we were here last week meeting, we were all talking about the possibility of a vote coming up in the school committee this evening regarding the budget gap and a possible compromise. So if I can believe my text, I did just get word that the school committee did take up a compromise earlier this evening, which passed by a vote of 8 in favor with 1 opposed. And what I'd like to do at this time is get a copy of the compromise. We'll take as much time as people want. We'll actually recess for a few minutes so you can take a look at it and the action that was taken, and then we'll reconvene and talk about the compromise and the school department's budget, if that's okay. So, Maureen, do you have, all right, why don't we get those passed out? Can I get a motion to recess the meeting at this point? So moved, second? All right, let's figure at least 15 minutes to give people some time. Thank you. If I may interrupt for just 1 minute while everyone is reviewing, there was a few questions, and Maureen's going to be available for any and all questions that you have. But one thing I wanted to mention on the school stabilization fund, the $4.2 million that is referenced in the memo, that is part of the mayor's proposed budget. So if we vote favorably on the budget, it takes care of the stabilization fund money, just so there's no question about that. That 4.2 million is part of that. One last interruption, if you would. Just one, if you could listen up for just 1 minute. If you look on the last page where it says next steps and recommendation, hold on a minute, will you please? Just a minute. If you look at the last page, Council Farrell, just a minute, just give me 1 minute. That's all right. If you look at next steps and recommendations, I really think it summarizes everything coming together and makes it clear. It explains about the original budget allocation, and then it's increased by the stabilization fund, and that's how we're getting to the number that we're going to be asked to vote on tonight. And then it does go on to list a number of other items, $4,995,612 that are other, shall we say, one-time funds that will also be at the disposal of the school department in order to, run their department's budget. So that's the summary. I think that's the most important thing, and I think it helps to make everything clear. All the numbers that were in the previous part of the memo. Are we ready to discuss it? Everybody all set? Okay. All right, can I have a motion to please go back into committee of the whole to
So moved.
continue the budget discussion? Motion by Council Lipoff, seconded by Council Getz. So we are back in the committee of the whole. So at this point, I'd like to just, open it up for questions or comments. As I said, Ms. Lemieux and Jonathan Leo are here to answer questions for you. Council Oliver.
Great, thank you, Chair. So just to confirm, and I think you have just explained this, but I want to make sure I'm hearing this right. So on the last page, under next steps and recommendation, there are 4 items, all of which are free cash, that total $4,995,612, correct?
Yes.
So far, so good. I love it. Those 4, or that total breaks down into 4 separate free cash items, 2 of which I believe we've already approved.
That's
The
true.
first 2. The next 2, the 1.1 million and the 1.425 million, are effectively, we're going to have to, I assume, break down the 2.525 into 2 separate items that match this, or are we going to leave that item intact?
If you correctly are pointing out, if you remember, we have a docket item that was for that amount of money, 2.5 million, 2.525, was it? 2.525, that is still in front of us. And that is how it is now, the recommendation as to how that money should be spent. So $1,000,001 will go to charter maintenance, and then $1,425,000 will be a list of those facility projects that the school department, I believe, has already given to the administration. They've already identified which projects they would like to see completed. Does that explain it?
So that item will stay intact as is. It doesn't need to be refiled at all.
No, but we're not, go ahead, Maureen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The item does not need to be refiled, but when the time is right, we also have a letter from the mayor asking to amend that. So what we will want to do is bifurcate it so that we have one section dealing with what the 1.425 will cover, and then another section dealing with the 1.1.
Fantastic. Thank you,
Actually,
Chair. Thank
Council
you.
Oliver, I'd love to take it up tonight, but we are erring on the side of caution here because it wasn't on our agenda, that specific docket item. But we want to make sure everybody understands that that's the last step in the plan. And
Fair.
we'll take it up as soon as we can, but we need to notice it properly.
Great. So then tonight we're just dealing with the budget, and free cash will be at the next session.
Yes, that particular item, yes. I don't know what the docket item was,
Yeah.
but that original item for 2.52, okay?
Thank you.
I see Counsel Mickley, and then Counsel Danberg.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't know the best way to do this, but if there's any way to share the reasoning, I guess the reasoning to support it from the school committee is here in this memo, but there was one vote that opposed. So if there's anything that we can hear from what was said in the school committee meeting for whoever opposed and why, that would be informative.
I don't know. All I got was the vote, Counsel Mickley, so I can't even try and summarize or paraphrase it for you, to be honest. Because it just happened, a little while ago. Other questions? Yes, Counsel Danberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the 4 special ed aides, saving a total of $141,144, I just want to be clear on how this is accomplished. It's a 6-month delay in the opening of the program. Is that the case? It says delay opening to February. And are we in conflict with any law here, or what happens to these students in the meanwhile?
So I can't,
Maybe
again,
this is for
specifically answer that, except to say, I think I've gotten to know, as you have, the superintendent well enough that she's not going to put us in any conflict with any state law, that's for sure. But this is, one of the areas that she felt that to save some money, that it could be delayed. But honestly, beyond that, I don't know enough about it to speak for her. I don't know if, Maureen, if you know, or if we're not sure.
Do we have any more information on that, Ms. Lemieux?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, the comment that I will make is that when the school administration originally put their budget together, they were concerned that they would have higher enrollments already at this point that have not materialized. So the pre-K enrollments as well as kindergarten enrollments, there's always an ebb and flow, and they never know exactly what the numbers will be. So they are very comfortable delaying these until second semester, and the superintendent absolutely, in fact, made it clear earlier tonight at the school committee, and earlier, she would never, ever be cutting something when we should be doing something right for pre-K students who are eligible for any of these services.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, why don't we hold on to these? Let's finish up the rest of the budget. Newton Public Schools is the last item, so we can discuss it more then if you want to. So the next item under the departments, as we have been going through them, would be the library department, and I would recognize Council Krinsman.
That's me.
Oh, sorry.
Hello. So we met on April 24th to discuss the item for the library, the proposed budget this year, $6,806,055. Despite what it says in the revised report, my recollection is there were 6 of us there when this one was taken, so that was 6-0. And again, I won't repeat the bulk of the report, but I'll just highlight, again, we were asking, or that night we were asking the department heads to comment on any potential federal implications for their work this year. And so I just wanted to underscore that that is a concern indirectly, because there are federal funding cuts to library services happening that potentially affect the state interlibrary loan system, which is certainly something that's very popular within the Newton Free Library and our patrons. So that was something that was raised as a potential thing to keep an eye on. And as has been mentioned in previous budget years, it continues to be a concern how expensive some of the materials are, especially the electronic materials. So that's always a potential cost driver for the library each year. So that's the report.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Seeing none, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Albright,
Aye.
Counselor Baker, Counselor Bigsby,
Aye.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Danberg,
Aye.
Counselor Downs, Counselor Downs,
That's an aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Abstain.
Counselor Gentile,
Aye.
Counselor Getz,
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg,
Aye.
Counselor Grossman,
Aye.
Counselor Humphrey,
Aye.
Counselor Kalis,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Krinsman,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz, Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Maliki,
Aye.
Counselor Mickley,
Aye.
Counselor Oliver,
Aye.
Counselor Wright, President Laredo.
Aye.
The motion passes with 20 yeas, 3 absent, and 1 abstention.
Okay, thank you. Next is Parks, Rec, and Culture, Programs and Services.
That's me again. So on April 24th, for this one, there were 7 of us there. So that was a vote of 6-0 to 1, the abstention, Councilor Farrell. Councilor Krinsman was not present. And that was for a proposed budget of $9,712,550. And there were a number of new positions coming online. Generally a very positive report overall on their work. They feel like it went well in the last year and so forth. They highlighted that the insourcing last year of tree care services was a big success, resulted in 20% more work achieved for the same amount of money. So that's a great recommendation for insourcing where we can. I was happy to hear that. Their cost driver concerns remain around things like the pool chemical costs, the mowing costs, things like that. These are, spiking each year as everything goes up in price. And that was the report from Parks and Rec.
Questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, can I get a roll call, please?
Counselor Albright,
Aye.
Counselor Baker, Counselor Bigsby,
Aye.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Danberg,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Abstain.
Counselor Gentile,
Aye.
Counselor Getz,
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg,
Aye.
Counselor Grossman,
Aye.
Counselor Humphrey,
Aye.
Counselor Kalis,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Abstain.
Counselor Kritzman,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz, Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Maliki,
Aye.
Counselor Mickley,
Aye.
Counselor Oliver,
Aye.
Counselor Wright, President Laredo.
Aye.
The motion passes with 19 yeas, 3 absent, and 2 abstention.
Okay, Historic Newton?
All right, that's me again. We met on April 24th, and this was a, I believe, 6-0 vote in favor of the proposed budget of $323,093. As a reminder, which we remind every year, the part we're voting on is only the city's contribution, because this is a mixed department where, you know, about half of it comes from other sources that are not within the control of the city. So we're only talking about the city money here. However, as some of you may have heard the news, it did make it into some articles. The same cuts that were potentially affecting the library definitely affected Historic Newton this year on their nonprofit side. They had to let someone go when a federal grant was rescinded that was supposed to fund a position for 3 years that was going to help with some of our off-site collections and archives work. That was obviously very disappointing for them. But again, that was coming from an outside funding source, but I just wanted to mention it as I think it was noteworthy, unfortunately. Otherwise, things going very well. They've got some exciting projects and capital things happening this year, and that is the report for that department.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Counselor Albright,
Aye.
Counselor Baker, Counselor Bigsby,
Aye.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Danberg,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Abstain.
Counselor Gentile,
Aye.
Counselor Getz,
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg,
Aye.
Counselor Grossman,
Aye.
Counselor Humphrey,
Aye.
Counselor Kalis,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Kritzman,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz, Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Maliki,
Aye.
Counselor Mickley,
Aye.
Counselor Oliver,
Aye.
Counselor Wright, President Laredo.
Aye.
The motion passes with 20 yeas, 3 absent, and 1 abstention.
Okay. Last item, Newton Public Schools. I know that we discussed the schools quite a bit at our last meeting, but Mr. Chairman, do you want to add anything on the Newton Public Schools before we take a vote?
Nothing to add. You want me to remind you of the vote? Because the vote in committee was to reject. I don't know if that changes the yay and the nay here. In other words, are we voting to reject the committee's recommendation? I don't know what the specific motion is, but in programs and services, the school department's budget was, the straw vote failed 2-6.
Okay. All right, so we now have the compromise that is in front of you. We are still being asked to support the original recommendation, which is $292,963,623. If you were to add the additional support that is on the last page of the memo that we received, that number becomes $959,235. But again, we're being asked, and what the base budget is the 292,963,623, which is in front of you. So are there any questions or comments on that recommended amount? Councilor Bixby and then Councilor Block.
I'll stay as brief as possible here, but first of all, I just want to thank everybody in this room, all my colleagues, for bearing with me and other parents of NPS kids who are your colleagues on the council as we dealt with this challenging time of debating how much could go to the schools this year. And I just also want to say thank you for your support. I mean, it's meant a lot to have what is, truly an intergenerational body, as previously discussed, come together and support the schools and our students, and do everything we could to try and figure this out. So I guess we'll share our thanks to the school committee and superintendent and the administration and everybody who made difficult compromises, I think, to get this done. And we'll see how this all shakes out in terms of the budget next year. I just really wanted to call attention to, in this memo, there's a bullet point here that says the superintendent and mayor both understand that the school committee will advocate throughout the FY26 school year and FY27 budget process to move as much of the expenses supported by free cash as possible into the NPS FY27 base allocation budget. And so I think if we can all just read that and remember it for next year, there will be challenging discussions again, I'm sure, in terms of percentage allocations. Councilor Humphrey mentioned many of the issues that have kind of happened over the past few years for the base allocation. So as we go forward, if we can recognize what has been spent for the schools and what needs to be spent in an ongoing way to continue to do the great work. And as I've said every time I've had the microphone through this process, also figure out our other, bigger picture financial conversations and how we make this all work for the city as a whole, because we are all working together on this. So thank you, and I'll be quiet for now, but thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Block.
Mr. Chair, will the mayor be submitting an amendment to this line?
To which?
To the Newton Public Schools budget of 292,963,623. Will that be formally amended?
No.
Okay.
Because that is the budget allocation. That's what is going into their base budget. But also part of this compromise is the commitment for another just under $5 million, basically in free cash items to help support the budget for FY26.
Okay, thank you.
But all we're being asked to vote on is the original number, which is the original allocation plus the school stabilization fund money, which was a little over 4.2.
Thank you.
Okay.
Very helpful.
Anything else? We all set? All right. Councilor Lucas and then Councilor Grossman.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to second what Councilor Bixby said earlier. And I think I got your answer when you were communicating with Councilor Block that we're voting on the 292, and then we will have the 4.9 million later on in this council. So I will vote for the 292, and thank you.
Okay. And again, the first two items under free cash, we've already voted on and approved. And then the next two are basically just a bifurcation of the 2.525 docket item that we received earlier in the process, which we will take up as soon as possible and vote on, okay? Councilor Grossman.
Thank you, and I certainly echo the comments of Councilor Bixby and Councilor Lucas. I think Councilor Block's question really hits the point of my biggest objection to where we are, and I'll cut to the punchline and say that I am going to vote for this. So I think at some point the fight is done, a compromise is made, and you move on, and I think we've reached that point. But I do want to just state what still bothers me about this, and the first is exactly what Councilor Block just raised. The base budget remains the same. And that means that next year, whatever percentage increase is applied to that base budget, unless there's some adjustment made to what we all agree or what the school committee and the superintendent and the mayor agree is the base budget, operates off of this. And I just don't think we can keep doing this year after year after year. So that issue of what is in the base still bothers me. As well as a couple vocabulary words that bubbled up for me during this process. And the first, I made a comment the other night about the financial gymnastics that we've gone through every year, and I continue to feel that way. The other was a comment that was made along the line that this budget is put together with Scotch tape, and that's what it feels like. I also object to the fact that we still aren't even at the level services plus number with this compromise. I understand that the reductions that are being made are not student facing or affecting current employed staff members, but it's certainly not moving the ball forward. And I think that's what we desire for education in our community. The other is the approach overall of piecing together all of these, free cash items and reductions here and assumptions there. I think it puts the superintendent in a precarious position of having to make assumptions about savings that she's supposed to achieve this year, about crossing her fingers that certain amounts of Chapter 70 money are going to come through. I don't feel good about that. And I don't feel good about the fact that the school committee is still not able to take this full amount of money that is essentially being granted to them to run their budget and being able to make their own decisions about the highest and best use of these dollars for the services of students. Now, that said, I understand that a lot of people worked really hard to come to this compromise, and I do really appreciate that. We have to compromise in government to be able to move forward. So I am going to support it, but just with continued attention that I and I know others will pay in the rest of this year and coming into a new administration next year about how we are going to work together to solve this really massive and ever-growing problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to Chairman Krinsman. The docket item that I keep referring to, the original capital item list, the 2.525 million is docket item 123-25. In case you were looking for it. All right, Councilor Albright and then Councilor Farrell.
Thank you. So sort of building off what Councilor Grossman was just talking about, if this were a normal year, and by a normal year, I mean we knew that the same mayor was going to develop the budget next year, we might do a resolution asking for a different kind of budget discussion that starts earlier. But since we know that there'll be a different mayor, we don't know who the mayor will be, but there'll be a different mayor, a resolution might not be in order, but then again it might, because we can't solve this problem by starting in December, or certainly not starting in April. This is going to take some very serious conversations with the school committee, with the city council, and with the mayor's office, whoever the mayor, well, we know who the mayor is now and whoever the mayor will become. And it has to start this summer. It has to start right away because there's some big questions that need to be answered. So do you think a resolution, I don't know who to do the resolution to, is the problem. I'm looking for your help, Chair Gentile. Is there a need here to do a resolution that asks for some early planning on these financial issues?
I mean, if, obviously, still a resolution is in order. I think that the message has gotten out there that we need to think about doing our budget process differently so that hopefully it'll be a smoother process certainly than we had this year. I think people understand that. The person who may be succeeding the current mayor, I think, is very much aware of that. I've heard him say so. So I don't think you need it, but I think everybody realizes that we got to see if we can do a little better job than what we've been doing. To Councilor Grossman's point, I mean, if I'm school committee member or a superintendent of school, the first thing I'm doing is I'm going in and saying, I understand that our base was X, but we all know that we were allocated $5 million more than that, and that should be my base going forward. But who knows what the new mayor will do. The new mayor, he or she may have a totally different way of building a budget. I mean, what this mayor has been doing consistently is giving a certain increase every single year. In this year, it was raised, I think, from 3.5 to 3.65, okay? That's how they get started, and then we go from there. Someone else may have a much different way of doing it. So I think the message is out there that we need to look at different ways of budgeting, and I think we have to give the new person a chance to see what their way is.
So I think the question is bigger than just how the budget is formulated. I think when the mayor gave her address, she talked about 9 levers,
right,
and there are probably more. That's, I think, where we need to focus is what are the things that can change the way we do this work and change how we think about it. Not just how we do the budget process, but how we as a city can do it differently and operate differently. So if you think that enough has been said that we don't need a resolution, I'm okay with that. But I think we need to all keep this in the forefront, that's all.
I agree. Who did I have? Oh, Councilor Farrell, and then Councilor Leary, and then Councilor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair, for remembering. I appreciate that. And thank you and Councilors Grossman and Albright for also mentioning many of the things, at least at the high level, about what I was going to speak about. I do think that the City Council and the next mayor need to look at a new process. And I think that truly means changing the charter. And I think it means giving the council some power to be able to negotiate earlier on with the mayor about how the budget will come out. My opinion at the moment is that we've gone through a review of programmatic experiences rather than real budget consequences in our process. Departments come in, they tell us what they've done in the past year, they tell us what they're going to do in the new year, and then that's going to cost 3.1% increase. And rarely have I seen any in-depth conversation with the departments by the council about the numbers in their budget. What do they mean? And I think there needs to be a process that gives the council enough authority so that the mayor, hopefully willingly, will come to the council and say, let's get together with department heads and talk in detail about what they do, how they do it, and what it's going to cost. And that if the council is in agreement, they approve it. But if they don't, then they deny it. And that the mayor then has to, if they veto the decision by the council, come back to the council for something like a 3/4 majority vote. But there's got to be more power in this body than to just review the programmatic experiences of the departments. And then secondly, one of the reasons I think that's true is because we have been consumed for the past couple of weeks about an issue we can do nothing about, and that is the school department's budget and the power of the mayor. And I'm just talking, let me talk about a mayor. I'm not talking about this particular mayor, but a mayor. And that is stunning to me that we would spend as much time and energy on this issue. The school department ought to have more power to create its own budget. And so I think as much as it is up to the mayor, it is up to this council in the future and all of us together to look at the charter and say, how can we become more effective and really have conversations about money with each department and allow the school department, in fact, to create its own budget and be respectful of that. And I also think we need to, at some point, talk about regular overrides. I don't think the city can last on the 3% increase in its budgets. And that means a huge emphasis on educating the public in general about why we need to raise more money. I'll end it here, but thank you for listening, and I do hope that in the future we will get, the very near future, we will begin a process of really correcting this budgetary process. Thank you.
Council Leary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My comments were very similar to Councilor Albright's and a little bit of Councilor Farrell's. I think it's, we do need to think about the levers or options to increase revenue. We either cut services, raise revenue, or do a combination of the two. And we have to start thinking about that on July 1st. And also, there are other departments also that certainly could use more resources as well that I think have been stifled over the years. So I think we have some hard choices to make. At this point, people ask me about the school budget and what's going on, and I'm like, it just seems like we can't afford our schools anymore. And with everything that's been going on, the inflation particularly, it's really a very difficult time, and it's not going to be easier next year. So I would certainly like to be part of that plan to figure out how we can be more fiscally stable going forward and start a lot earlier. Thank you.
Councilor Oliver.
Great, thank you, Chair. I'll be brief, but I do intend, obviously, to support this budget. The whole intent this entire time was to get the school committee and Dr. Nolan what it is that they need, even though we're perhaps close, but not at 100% of where they wanted to be. But I just want to also point out there's something that, there's a real silver lining to the cloud that we just went through, right? There might even be 2 layers to it. Number one, I think that this council is forging a much better, much more productive relationship with our school committee, and I'd like to see that continue and grow. And number two, I think we also went through a bit of a process that helped us all look at the shared challenge that we have in front of us, like Councilor Leary just pointed out, and multiple councilors before her. We have some difficult times in front of us. We just cleared a short-term hurdle. We've probably got a little bit of a midterm hurdle, perhaps, later on in FY26. And then we've got some levers we've got to start to reach for and manipulate. But I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Maliki, Kalis, and Lucas again.
Thank you. I just want to, I'm not sure who this question can be answered by, if it's Mr. Curley, Ms. Lemieux, but I guess I would like to see, before next year's budget certainly, and sooner if possible, sort of a more honest accounting, because it seems like all the, it was described by Scotch tape, or, I could call it a Rubik's Cube, I don't know what, but it seems like we've even more obscured the actual cost of running the school system than it was already obscured by the fact that we're taking various expenses like whether it's crossing guards or whatever on the city side, every single department in the city is not really the true budget number because there's this added cost, health insurance cost that's going to be applied, I guess, throughout the year. And so I'm just wondering if there's a way to get what the real budget numbers are for each department, so that when we look back a year from now at what was the 2025, 2026 budget, we'll know what it really should have been as opposed to what we were calling it before all the adjustments.
Thank you. Councilor Kalis?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Councilor Albright, what I would say is I'm with you. I did like how the mayor articulated 9 or 10 different items. I think we should docket some items now. And maybe maybe one goes to PF, which is analyzing the possibility of moving to, instead of weekly, to bi-weekly recycling pickup. So we start working that now, and if we get to a point where we need to get into finance, then we do that. There might be others that we docket that go to finance, but I think that's those are key steps that I think can take immediately, and maybe discuss them in council now. And when the new mayor comes in, they can look at what we've done and decide if any of those approaches are worthy of proceeding. So I think that's worth doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Lucas, Greenberg, and Mickley. And I just want to mention that we probably have, in addition to this vote, at least 5 other votes that we have to take. Okay? Councilor Lucas.
Thank you, Chair. Councilor Albright mentioned something, resolutions, and it's a process question, because every other year since I've been on the council, we pass a resolution, we get a response from the mayor, but this year I don't think we're going to get one if we're going to vote on the budget tonight. So I was just wondering, should we expect an answer to the resolutions, or did we get it in the form of the compromise that occurred at the school committee meeting tonight? It's just a process question, that's all, Chair.
So what we typically do is we give the mayor resolutions with the we try to give them the first night. This has been a little bit of a different process, obviously, because so much work and time and effort has gone into trying to resolve the school situation. So we don't usually, on the last night of the budget, submit a resolution when we're going to be passing. So it just, we haven't done that in the past, which is the other reason why I didn't think that we needed to do that tonight. Because, it is relatively early, and I would think that we'll be able to get through the rest of our business, and there'd be no reason to come back on Wednesday. So to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense to hand a resolution in, and the budget will have already been hopefully passed.
Yeah, but I was referring to the ones we passed last week.
Oh, the ones from last week?
Yeah, normally we get a response, but this year I guess we got the response in the form of a compromise.
Yes, yeah,
So
all right, I'm sorry.
It's just the process.
I didn't understand your
okay.
question. I think that the mayor was prepared to respond, wanted to see what the outcome of the school committee's vote was tonight. But I can assure you that if that was negative, if the vote was negative by the school committee, you would have gotten a response.
Okay.
But since there's a compromise and hopefully peace right now, there's no reason to really, give the response.
Yeah,
but
that's fine.
They were certainly prepared.
Yep, I was just wanted to check on the process.
Okay.
That's all. Thank
yeah,
you.
They certainly didn't ignore it.
Yeah.
I promise you that. You just wanted to wait. Councilor Greenberg, and then Mickley and Danberg, right, David?
Thank you, Chair. I would find it helpful if, as a city council, we worked more collaboratively with the school department and school committee. Perhaps if we had more joint sessions perhaps if we didn't have city council meetings the same night as school committee meetings, I would think that we would gain more information and learn about the situation in the school department much sooner than April. So that's one suggestion I have that I think would help us in the future with the budget.
Okay, point well taken. Counselor, I think I had Mickley first. David, go ahead, and then Counselor Danberg.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just want to underscore the point of the challenge ahead of us. As difficult as it was to reconcile these numbers, based on the budget and forecast we received from the superintendent at the beginning of May, next year the gap is forecasted to be over 7 million, the year after that over 11 million, the year after that 15 million, and the year after that over 20 million. So the challenge in front of us is pretty gigantic, and I think everything that everyone's saying in terms of the importance of doing that work now only becomes more clear when seeing those numbers. I just want to echo the sentiment shared by Councilor Oliver of the silver lining of this process, that it gave us the opportunity to exercise these muscles, these conversations, this sort of collaboration, because we're going to need to do a lot more of it to engage in the serious trade-offs ahead of us. That's all.
Thank you. Counselor Danberg, and then maybe we can vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I will be supporting this, and I want to congratulate all of the parties that got together to be able to make this compromise and allow the schools to be able to move forward into another year without tremendous sacrifice and pain. We definitely do need to start early and start in the summer discussing this and finding out finding a way that we could move forward next year with it, since the base budget will be going back to 292 million. It's going to be the same scenario next year if something isn't done. We know the high cost of upgrading of our facilities is looming. What the cost 5 years ago have gone up so much to the present that we are going to be facing, as Councilor Mickley said, an increased deficit. Every year the deficit is just going to get bigger and worse. We can look for more efficiencies, but the reality is that we have cut to the bone. We cannot survive as a city or as a school system if we look to more deep cuts the way we've had to do this year. The only real answer to this is to increase our revenue, because it's not going to work with more cuts. And the only way that, the ways that we can increase our revenue are overrides and growth. And the voters have turned down our pleas in the past, and our job now as a city is to make, and as leaders of the city, is to make the case to the voters that that we need to move forward on both of these fronts. Many cities and towns have had many smaller overrides that have been successful. We have not taken that route. I wish we had, but the overrides have been so infrequent that they've had to be very large, and we've lost the confidence of the voters, and we've got to get it back. So we need to make a case, because one thing is clear, and that is that we've got to fund our schools and we've got to fund our city. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, can we vote on the school budget at this time? That seeing no other comments or questions. Roll call, please.
Councillor Albright.
Aye.
Councillor Baker. Councillor Bigsby.
Aye.
Councillor Block.
Aye.
Councillor Danberg.
Aye.
Councillor Downs.
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Abstain.
Counselor Gentile,
Aye.
Counselor Getz,
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg,
Aye.
Counselor Grossman,
Aye.
Counselor Humphrey,
Aye.
Counselor Kalis,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Kritzman,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz, Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Maliki,
Aye.
Counselor Mickley,
Aye.
Counselor Oliver,
Aye.
Counselor Wright, President Laredo.
Aye.
The motion passes with 20 yeas, 3 absent, and 1 abstention.
Thank you. All right, so we need to also now vote on the Community Preservation Fund, which will be followed by a vote on the Water, Sewer, and Stormwater Fund. So I need a short report on community preservation, which I think would come from zoning and planning. And then Councilor Albright, the Water, Sewer, and Stormwater Fund. I mean, basically, we've already voted the rates and so forth, so just a brief report. And let's take care of those 2 funds, or 4 funds. Councilor Oliver?
Fantastic. Thank you, Chair. Zoning and Planning met on the 29th of April. We discussed the CPA and its administration. The total budget of $5,059,393.45 was approved unanimously. That was 7-0. During our conversation, we did talk about the contributions that have been made this past year and some of the things we're looking forward to next year. One element that I did want to highlight from the conversation is that this budget does represent a slight decline from the previous year, FY25. That is primarily due to a reduction of around $200,000 from state matching funds. And with that, I'll move that report.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? you're reading my mind. I was going to say, can we give Cassidy a break and do this one on a voice vote? I think we can. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion passes unanimously with the absentees. Water, Sewer, and Stormwater. Chair Albright.
So Commissioner Sullivan met with the Public Facilities Committee, and in her presentation on DPW included all of the projects that have been completed by DPW and the projects that they're looking forward to in the coming year.
And Chair Albright, I was told that it would be best if we were to vote each fund separately.
Okay.
All right.
So there are 3 separate funds here. The first one is the Water Fund, and the amount is $29,376,316. And on a straw vote, I believe there were 8 of us there that night. So it was 8-0 in favor.
Okay. Any questions, comments? We can do this on a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Abstaining.
Abstaining.
I'm recused.
Recused, right? Recused.
Yeah.
1 recused. Okay, Sewer Fund?
The next one is the Sewer Fund. The amount was $35,747,497. Again, the vote was 8-0.
Okay. Any comments, questions? Voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Recused?
Recused.
1 recused. And Stormwater?
Stormwater Fund is $5,843,366. Again, 8-0.
Okay. Questions? Comments? Voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Recused? No, right? No. So,
I'm not recused. I'm
right.
voting aye.
Okay, so motion passes unanimously with, I believe, the 3 absent. All right, now we just we need to circle back to the executive department, to the mayor's office. In the memo that you received on Friday, asking that we not move forward with the creation of the sustainability department, the ask was that we take the same amount of money, the same positions, and just add those into the executive office budget for those 4 positions in sustainability. Okay, so the amount, it would be, we're being asked to move the sustainability number of 521,267 back into the mayor's office budget, which would, the new total in the executive department would be 1,797,179. Can I get a motion, please? Motion to approve? Yeah, sure. Council Humphrey, is there a second? Second. Questions? Council Humphrey.
Is this technically a reconsideration because it was already voted? Does it have to get brought back for that?
I don't think it needs to be reconsidered in committee of the whole because it was a straw vote. But if we wanted to make sure, but I don't think so because we're in committee of the whole, and it was, as they say, it was a straw vote. So we're just, it's an amendment to the budget that the mayor is actually proposing.
Right.
Okay, good question, and I could be wrong.
I think it's fine.
You agree with me, Council Lucas? Thank you very much. All right. Any other questions on this? So the motion's been made and approved on a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Okay, the other 2 pieces of business, if you remember, we started off the budget season, we had a public hearing on the 5-year capital improvement plan, and we also had a presentation on the 5-year supplemental capital improvement plan. I asked that both of those be held so that people could go through the individual budgets, which we have done. So at this point, I would ask for 2 separate motions, starting with the 5-year capital improvement plan. Can I get a motion to approve that? Motion made by Councilor Oliver, seconded by Councilor Krinsman. Any discussion? Voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes unanimously. And then the supplemental capital improvement plan, can I get a motion on that? So moved by Council Kalis, seconded by Council Leary. Voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. So let me turn to my right arm, and I believe we've covered all the individual votes, and I think we should be ready to vote on the FY26 final budget and all of the funds that we have voted on separately. So the item that we are being asked to vote at this time is for the FY26 budget, an approved amount of $622,379,766. May I get a motion? Motion by Council Leary, seconded by Councilor Danberg. Questions or discussion? Okay. Seeing none, let's do this with a roll call vote, please.
Counselor Albright?
Aye.
Counselor Baker? Counselor Bigsby.
Aye.
Counselor Block.
Aye.
Counselor Danberg.
Aye.
Counselor Downs.
Aye.
Counselor Farrell.
Aye.
Counselor Gentile.
Aye.
Counselor Getz.
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg.
Aye.
Counselor Grossman.
Aye.
Counselor Humphrey.
Aye.
Counselor Kalis.
Aye.
Counselor Kelly.
Aye.
Counselor Krinsman.
Aye.
Counselor Leary.
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff.
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz. Counselor Lucas.
Aye.
Counselor Maliki.
Aye.
Counselor Mickley.
Aye.
Counselor Oliver.
Aye.
Counselor Wright. President Laredo.
Aye.
The motion passes 21 yeas and 3 absent.
Okay, at this time, it would be appropriate to adjourn the committee of the whole so we can go back into the full council in order to vote out our actions tonight. There's a lot of people to thank. The one person I want to single out is sitting to my left. He's a quiet person, but let me tell you, when I need information, when I need help, he's always there, and has been extremely helpful. Every year, he gets even to be more helpful, and I just want to thank our comptroller, Steve Curley, for all of his help. A lot of you played a big role. I respectfully slightly disagree with one of Councilor Farrell's points earlier that we don't play a role or maybe as big a role, but I'll tell you this, the council, through your advocacy, I can tell you, you played a big role this year in getting to this point, to this compromise. So please don't sell yourself short. It could have been a totally different outcome, a much lousier outcome, if things, had gone sideways at a couple of opportunities. But I think that your advocacy did play a big role in getting us to this point tonight. And I don't know, early on, just not that long ago, I think if you were placing a bet, I'm not sure that there would have been much money placed on the budget voting unanimously, which I think sends a very important message. Well, I shouldn't say unanimously. I think there was one abstention, but with a very strong majority. So thank you for that. And so at this point, could I get a motion to adjourn the committee of the whole? Councilor Danberg moves approval. Councilor Leary seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? All right, the committee of the whole is adjourned. We'll turn it over to the president, huh? Yeah, I'm going on my seat. Yeah, just.
Can you all hear me? Good. Thank you, Chair Gentile. I'm going to save some comments that I have for until after we take our votes this evening. We have several votes that we're going to take right now, and then at the end, we'll go through the usual procedural stuff we go through as we consider budget. And before we adjourn, I'm going to say a few things. I'm going to invite the mayor within the rail, subject to your approval, so we have an opportunity for her to speak to us too. So with that, We are now in order again. We're back in full city council. And I'm going to recognize the chair of the Finance Committee, Chair Gentile, to report out 3 items from our Committee of the Whole deliberations just a moment ago, for which there's no written report. And you'll need suspensions of the rules, of course. Chair Gentile, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. When you say 3 items, I'm assuming the budget and the 2 CIP items?
That's correct.
Okay. So the council conducted individual committee meetings of our respective departments over the last 3 weeks, which culminated in a meeting of the Committee of the Whole, where reports were given and individual budgets were voted on. I think it's safe to say that the majority of the discussion this year centered on the school budget and a gap that had existed at the beginning of the process, and would like to think that it was positively resolved tonight when the school committee voted in favor of a compromise plan, which in turn was supported strongly by the city council. And then the budget, including all of the individual departments, the Community Preservation Fund, the Water Fund, Sewer Fund, and Stormwater Fund, which totals a proposed or approved now FY26 budget totaling $622,379,766, which was approved by a vote of, I believe, 20 in favor with 1 abstention and 3 absent. Is that right?
And we've been joined by Councilor Baker, who's here in time for the most important event of the evening, the vote. Welcome, Councilor.
Glad to be here. Sorry it took a while.
Go ahead, Matt.
The full vote was 21 yeas and 3 absent.
All right, so it was 21 yeas, no abstentions. 21 yeas and 3 absent. All right,
Yes.
Thank you. So the budget was approved by 21 yeas and 3 absent. And then also, I would report out, though I don't have the docket numbers in front of me, the capital improvement, the 5-year capital improvement plan, which was
8225.
82-25, thank you, which was, I believe, approved with the same vote, 21 in favor with 3 absent. And then the supplemental capital improvement plan, which is docket item
351-24.
351-24, which was also approved by a vote of 21 in favor with 3 being absent. And I would move, at this time, I would move all 3 of those items.
So you need a suspension of the rules to do that. Let's just do that quickly. All in favor of suspending the rules, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gentile, you move those 3 items?
Yes, I do. So I thought we had already done the suspension, so.
Thank you. Are there any amendments to reduce or eliminate any line items in the proposed budget? All right, seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the mayor's proposed budget, including the general fund of $547,629,106, the Community Preservation Fund budget of $5,059,393, the Stormwater Fund budget of $5,843,366, the Sewer Fund budget of $35,747,497, and the Water Fund budget of $29,376 3,706, $376,316. Do I have a motion for
So
that?
moved.
Moved by Counselor Lipoff, seconded by Counselor Leary. A roll call vote, please, Madam.
Mr. President, can you just give us that general fund budget amount again, please?
Of course, the proposed budget for the general fund was $547,629,106.
All right, because I have a different figure.
This is what was provided to me earlier this evening. Mr. Curley, you want to make sure we vote on the correct number? You're welcome. And
I have 546,353,194 on two different documents.
why don't we take a 10-second recess, and Mr. Curley and Ms. Lemieux, will you confer and identify the appropriate numbers? We're going to be in recess for, we'll give it a minute, okay, just to make sure we get the numbers right. I thought I fixed that, David, didn't I? Complete. I thought Rick was catching me there, but we'll find. I'll fix it. All right, thanks. I gotta get, you know, I'm not MBA. I gotta get my numbers right. That's right. We'll fix it. We'll fix it. We'll fix it all. How's that? All right. I'm unilaterally extending the recess for another 2 minutes, Councilor Lucas, till they can complete their work.
So this number should be.
You have a corrected number.
So anyway, the numbers you read are correct. So it's, so,
547,629,106.
yeah, so that's the general fund, and then the total is is this 623. 623, 655, 678.
Good. But we're okay now. Colleagues, if you could resume your seats, please. Colleagues. So, in the interest of clarity, I am going to reread what the numbers are. I'll have a total there. I'm going to ask for Councilor Lipoff to make the appropriate motion and Councilor Leary to second that motion. So let me read that again to make sure we're crystal clear. This will be a motion to approve the mayor's proposed budget, including the general fund of $547,629,106, the community preservation fund budget of $5,059,393, the stormwater fund budget of $5,843,366, the sewer fund budget of $35,747,497, and the water fund budget of $29,376,316, for a total allocation of $623,655,678. All right, Councilor Lipoff, may I have a motion, please?
So moved.
All right, Councilor Leary, second. All right, Madam Acting Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Counselor Albright.
Aye.
Counselor Baker.
Aye.
Counselor Bigsby.
Aye.
Counselor Block.
Aye.
Counselor Danberg.
Aye.
Counselor Downs.
Aye.
Counselor Farrell.
Aye.
Counselor Gentile. Counselor Getz.
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg.
Aye.
Counselor Grossman.
Aye.
Counselor Humphrey.
Aye.
Counselor Kalis.
Aye.
Counselor Kelly.
Aye.
Counselor Krinsman.
Aye.
Counselor Leary.
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff.
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz. Counselor Lucas.
Aye.
Counselor Maliki.
Aye.
Counselor Mickley.
Aye.
Counselor Oliver.
Aye.
Counselor Wright. President Laredo.
Aye.
The motion passes with 22 yeas and 2 absent.
I am going to ask colleagues for a motion for reconsideration. It can be made by any one of us who voted aye or yes. Councilor Albright has made the motion. Councilor Kalis has seconded. To be clear, if you want to reconsider the budget vote we just took, you vote yes. Otherwise, if you want to keep it as is, you vote no. And this way, we preclude any further deliberations on the budget in case someone changes their mind in the next 24 hours. So, Madam Acting Clerk, will you call the roll? Again, a yes or an aye vote is in favor of reconsideration. A no or nay vote is not to reconsider. Go ahead, please.
Counselor Albright.
No.
Counselor Baker.
No.
Counselor Bigsby.
No.
Counselor Block.
No.
Counselor Danberg.
No.
Counselor Downs.
No.
Counselor Farrell.
No.
Counselor Gentile. Counselor Getz.
No.
Counselor Greenberg.
No.
Counselor Grossman.
No.
Counselor Humphrey.
No.
Counselor Kalis.
No.
Counselor Kelly.
No.
Counselor Krinsman.
No.
Counselor Leary.
No.
Counselor Lipoff.
No.
Counselor Lobovitz. Counselor Lucas.
No?
Counselor Maliki,
No.
Counselor Mickley,
No.
Counselor Oliver,
No.
Counselor Wright, President Laredo.
No.
The vote is 22 nays, 0 yeas, and 2 absent.
Thank you. So before we ask for a suspension of the rules to invite the mayor inside the rail, I just want to take a moment to offer some observations and to give some thanks to folks. This was a very difficult budget season by all accounts. I think we struggled with this for a long time over a very substantial issue, the school budget. I have to say, I am exceptionally proud of how this city council has conducted itself. Why is that? Because there was spirited, heartfelt debate and comment on the various resolutions before us. I think there was a concerted effort among councilors to both understand the issues at play, to work with the superintendent and the school committee and the administration to express those concerns. And that's exactly what this body should be doing. Exactly what this body should be doing. Civilized, spirited discussion and debate, representing what we think is in the best interests of our constituents, and doing so in a way that is designed to improve things for all of us. I have to give a special appreciation to Councilor Albright, Councilor Grossman, Councilor Bixby, Councilor Oliver. A number of you all met with the mayor. I know I've missed several folks there. Met with the mayor on one or more occasions, tried to see if you could bridge compromise. But really, folks, we all owe a debt of gratitude to Councilor Gentile. Councilor Gentile not only, I think, led us in a very thoughtful, organized, cohesive fashion in our budget deliberations, but I know worked very hard, both publicly and I think even more importantly behind the scenes, to try to bring us all together. So I want to just give a round of applause to Councilor Gentile for his hard work over the last several weeks. Before, just a couple of final words before we invite the mayor within the rail. I really think that despite differences that all of us, or many of us, have had with the administration over the last few weeks regarding the budget, I don't think there's a single elected official in city government who's not doing it for all the right reasons. We care deeply. We are all trying to use our best judgment as to what we individually think is in the best interest of the city. And again, we should be very proud of that fact. This is how democratic governments function, and function properly. So I know others in this room all heard some of the, I think, strong pleas that we collectively, city government, this city council, this school committee, this mayor, start the work of thinking forward now, so we can start to think of the future collectively together. And I think that's a task for all of us on this council to be undertaking in the next weeks and months. And I look forward to working with the mayor and the school committee and the superintendent in doing that. So with that said, do I have a motion to invite the mayor to step within the rail? Councilor Lipoff, seconded by Councilor Kalis. Mr. Yo, would you invite the mayor to join us, please? Thank you. Yes, Councilor Gentile.
One major omission on my part. In addition to thanking our comptroller, the clerk's office did just tremendous work, especially knowing the fact that there's been a little bit of a change in the clerk's office, but they didn't miss a beat. they get the budget book literally, or all the budget information out like within 24 to 48 hours. And Cassidy and her support staff just did an absolute tremendous job, and I should have said that earlier.
Well, I have to echo that. Thank you so much, Cassidy. Thank you, Scott. All right, without further ado, I have the Honorable Ruth Ann Fuller, the Mayor of the City of Newton, who's going to come in and say a few words to us.
Hi, folks. How we doing? We are living in really turbulent, difficult times right now. What we are seeing across the country, across the Commonwealth, and yes, right here in our city, is really difficult. I'm honored to be doing this work with all of you, the city councilors, with those serving on the school committee, and with amazing staff, and most of all with passionate residents who care deeply about the quality of life for today and tomorrow. We are really privileged to live in Newton when the world is so chaotic. We saw the passion that this budget engendered because it's a tension in our values. All of us are so correctly focused on our youngsters. This morning, Councilor Humphrey, Councilor Farrell were with me over at Countryside, where we got to cut a ribbon thanks to the funding supported by the City Council for a new Countryside school. The fifth graders couldn't be there because of MCAS testing, but the K through 5 little ones were there with really big eyes as they were watching the beginning of the construction. Tonight over at school committee, 2 adorable third graders from Mason Rice spoke up on behalf of the NPS budget. All of us are here to do right by those 11,400 youngsters and the 90,000 plus residents who live here and the thousands more who come to work here every day. And it's really, really, really hard when you're living in inflationary times with rising needs for our students and only modest growth in your revenues. And we're trying to make sure we can pay our bills and balance the budget and keep the financial integrity of the city strong. And I heard all of you and the many residents. I heard from lots of teachers too, lots of caregivers. And the trick for all of us is to keep turning this passion, not to divide us, but into positive action. Because we can do it here in Newton. I have complete confidence. This is not the hardest budget that our team has been through. March 2020, with all of you, was a much harder budget because people were dying. There are many important choices that we have been making in the 8 years I've been mayor and before them. Counselor Gentile, what year are you in as Chair of Finance? I think this is year 16 as Chair, and decades more on the Finance Committee. Sorry, that's growing your wisdom and experience as opposed to aging you out. Lenny, it's with affection and respect. There are many levers to lean on. Almost all of them will pull, just a question of how many we pull hard versus a little. And I know the focus a lot was on the school budget, importantly as it should be. But the bundle of services that all of you reviewed in depth all matter to the quality of life here. Our police and our fire departments, DPW and our roads, our parks, recreation and culture department, the public buildings. All of you should take great pride that we're now going to be supporting our older residents so much better. This was our collective work. This wasn't my work. This was all of us doing this. Josh Krinsman, a thank you to you. The school budget comes through programs and services. Hasn't been easy for a few years now. We have 3 former school committee members, to Susan Albright, Mark Laredo, and Lenny Gentile, who stayed in really close touch with me and Maureen and Jonathan through all of this. I'm grateful. I heard from almost all of you individually as well, but to Counselor Gentile, Counselor Laredo, and Counselor Albright in particular, all 3 understand the push and pull here and worked really hard, certainly with me, with the superintendent, with Chris Bresky and others, to find a way forward. I am going to be shortly recommending to Congress that in particular, Lenny Gentile be used for shuttle diplomacy between Israel and Hamas, as well as Ukraine and Russia. Lenny, in particular, went out of his way to put in a lot of hours talking, imagining, brainstorming, refining, rethinking, and yes, cajoling. To the ghost of Carol Moore and to the new Cassidy Flynn, thank you. It's been a thing. Thank you. A shout out a little bit to Ron Mendez, by the way. We see Steve Curley and Maureen Lemieux and Jonathan Yo right up front, but Ron is such an integral part of the team. Steve is wise and thoughtful and so careful with his words, and he checks every number. To Jonathan Yo, and I even pulled in Josh Morse heavily this time through, just so you know, and especially to Maureen Lemieux. We are blessed to have people with such care, such experience, with such wisdom, certainly surrounding me, but I would say surrounding all of us. We're really lucky people in this chaotic world to have this community, this staff, these elected officials. My deep gratitude for you, for all the work that all of you do, and usually at night. So thank you. And thanks for the yes vote. Take care, everybody.
All right, I think our evening's festivities are over. Vice President Kalis, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, thank you.
We are adjourned at 9:35 p.m. and we will not meet on either Wednesday or Thursday nights, although those of you who are in land use will be here tomorrow. Thank you.